You know what really happens in the cockpit when your plane suddenly shakes, jolts, and drops during extreme turbulence? When passengers grip their armrests, gasps ripple through the cabin, and flight attendants freeze mid-aisle, yet the pilots remain calm, as if they've rehearsed this very moment 1,000 times before. What if I told you that what keeps you safe up there is not luck, but a highly choreographed dance between human instinct, advanced technology, hidden training drills the public rarely hears about, and decades of lessons learned from flights that encountered the most violent skies ever recorded? Let's peel back the curtain on the secret world of turbulence management. Because while most passengers think turbulence is just about holding tight until it's over, in reality, pilots are playing a mental and technical chess game with forces of nature that could rip apart lesser machines if not handled with precision. Turbulence isn't just random shaking. It comes in many faces: clear air turbulence invisible even to radar, mountain wave turbulence that hides behind ridges like a predator waiting to pounce, wake turbulence from other jets that can twist a plane off balance in seconds, and the violent bursts inside thunderstorm cells where vertical winds can exceed 6,000 feet per minute. To the untrained eye, these sound terrifying, but here's the truth. Every commercial pilot undergoes rigorous simulator sessions where they're thrown into extreme turbulence scenarios that no passenger ever witnesses, practicing how to stabilize the aircraft, redistribute thrust, use autopilot modes wisely, and most importantly, when to override technology with raw human judgment. Imagine sitting in a darkened simulator with hydraulic platforms shaking violently, alarms blaring, the plane dropping hundreds of simulated feet, and an instructor behind you shouting, "Recover now," until your reactions become muscle memory. By the time a pilot flies you through real turbulence, their body already knows how to counter it without hesitation. But it's not only about flying skills. Safety during turbulence begins hours before takeoff. Pilots study turbulence prediction maps created by meteorologists who analyze wind shear, jet streams, and satellite data. But what's fascinating is that pilots also rely on something called PIREPs, real-time reports from other pilots who've just flown through the same skies, like secret road signals passed between drivers on a hidden highway. A captain, preparing to cross the Rockies, might hear another pilot report, "Moderate chop," at flight level 330 near Denver, and immediately adjust altitude to 350 to avoid the worst of it, sparing you from a stomach-churning ride. When turbulence hits unexpectedly, pilots have a tool you rarely hear about. They reduce speed to what's called turbulence penetration speed, a carefully calculated sweet spot where the wings flex with the bumps instead of fighting against them, protecting the aircraft structure from stress. The wings themselves are designed to bend dramatically, far more than passengers realize, like giant shock absorbers tested in wind tunnels and even bent during certification trials until the tips nearly touched. That flex you see outside your window isn't weakness, it's proof of resilience, engineered precisely so turbulence doesn't break them. Inside the cockpit, communication becomes a lifeline. Pilots notify cabin crew in advance of expected turbulence, giving them time to secure carts and strap in, because more injuries happen to unbuckled passengers and crew than from the turbulence itself. And when turbulence suddenly strikes without warning, pilots follow an unspoken order of priorities. Fly the airplane first, keep it stable, then inform the crew, then reassure passengers. That calm voice you hear, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened," isn't just etiquette. It's a deliberate psychological anchor designed to lower collective panic while the crew quietly works the problem. Here's something you won't hear on most travel channels. Pilots also use seatbelt sign management strategically, sometimes leaving it on longer than turbulence lasts if they anticipate more bumps ahead, protecting you from walking around at the wrong time. And beyond turbulence management itself lies an invisible shield: air traffic control. Controllers track planes in affected zones, suggesting altitude changes or rerouting around storms, creating a cooperative safety web where pilots hundreds of miles apart share real-time updates. On long-haul flights over oceans, where turbulence reports are scarcer, pilots rely on satellite weather uplinks and even the faint signatures of lightning strikes captured by onboard sensors to navigate away from violent pockets of air. In the rare event turbulence becomes severe, think sudden altitude drops of hundreds of feet. It's not uncontrolled freefall, as movies dramatize, but controlled descent within structural safety margins, something planes are certified to endure. In fact, engineers intentionally design aircraft to survive worse turbulence than they are ever likely to face. But what about the human factor? How do pilots themselves keep calm? There's a psychological trick most pilots use. They focus not on the bumps, but on the numbers: the airspeed, altitude, thrust, and pitch. By anchoring their attention to data instead of the physical sensation, they bypass panic and stay locked into problem-solving mode. Some captains even mentally rehearse scenarios mid-flight, preparing for "what if this gets worse?" so that if it does, they're already ahead of the situation. One former test pilot revealed that they sometimes whisper a mantra under their breath during violent turbulence: wings level, speed steady, trust the machine. It's a ritual that centers the mind in chaos. Meanwhile, in the cabin, turbulence is often far scarier than it really is, because your body lacks the instruments pilots see. That roller coaster drop you feel as a free fall? In reality, it might be just a 20-foot altitude loss, barely noticeable on the flight deck. Your stomach magnifies the drama, while pilots see minor fluctuations. Another overlooked secret: pilots often dim the cockpit lights at night during turbulence to reduce visual distractions, allowing their eyes to focus solely on instruments, a small ritual that increases precision under stress. And when conditions are truly brutal, pilots sometimes choose to slow the journey down, rerouting hundreds of miles to bypass storm systems. Costly for fuel, yes, but priceless for safety. Airlines rarely announce this, but those long detours are part of why flights remain safe even in stormy seasons. Think of turbulence like a stormy ocean. While the waves may look menacing, the ship is built to ride them, and the captain has sailed through worse. That's exactly how pilots view the skies. They don't fight turbulence, they ride it. And here's the real hidden gem. Every time you walk off a plane after a bumpy flight, you've just witnessed the end result of decades of invisible safety layers. Engineers who tested the wings beyond braking, meteorologists who mapped dangerous air currents, anonymous pilots who reported bumps ahead, and the crew who silently executed a protocol you never saw. So the next time turbulence hits and fear grips your stomach, remember this: while you see chaos, your pilots see a puzzle, and they've been solving that puzzle long before you even stepped on board. In fact, some captains privately admit they enjoy the challenge of turbulence because it tests their skill and reminds them why they trained so hard. Isn't it fascinating that what feels like the most dangerous moment of your flight is often the one where you are most protected by the very design of the aircraft, by the psychology of the pilots, and by the invisible teamwork of aviation professionals across the globe? That's the hidden truth of turbulence. It's not a monster waiting to tear planes from the sky, but a challenge pilots have mastered so completely that your safety isn't just probable, it's guaranteed. And now that you know their secrets, the next time the cabin shakes, maybe you'll grip the armrest a little less tightly. Smile at the thought of wings flexing like steel muscles, and trust that above the clouds, your pilots are calmly steering you through the storm with skills you never knew existed.